start streaming. Hi, everyone. Can you hear us?
Hi.
How do we sound? Hopefully we sound good. Hopefully you can see us and hear us.
Hopefully you can see and hear and nothing crazy going on.
Let me know how Polly's volume sounds versus my volume. Sound good. Hell yeah. That is dope. Wow. I think this might be the first time in a while that we've like nailed the audio.
Nice. We're learning.
Yeah, you know.
No.
Oh, never mind. Willis says, I'm loud, you're quiet.
Oh, shoot. Polly sounds good. You're a little louder though.
Okay, how about now?
It's not a YouTube stream unless we have to adjust volume.
Facts. Absolute facts. Okay. How does Polly sound now?
Does that sound okay?
Okay, good enough. Oh no. I think it's also because like
was normal K. I wasn't sure if that was normal KJ loud.
I mean, yeah. I am a pretty loud human being. Polly could still go up some more. Okay.
Boop, boop, boop. I can
let
also
me
turn myself up too. Would that help?
Oh, that would work as well.
Let me go like that. Is that better? Better, worse. Boop, boop, boop. Boop, boop,
Yeah.
doop.
As long as you don't sound doubled, I think that's good.
See, it's pretty good, but yeah, Polly could go louder. I'm like almost on the max bar thingy.
Okay, for me, you guys sound almost the same in volume. Okay, let me turn my speaker down. That way, because I'm worried it's going to be too loud and pick you up. And then I'll turn you up on my end a little more.
That seems good. I think everybody's saying, I think we're okay now. Yeah. If she shouts, it might echo though. I don't know if there would be too much shouting. KJ could go, wait, what? Down in volume?
How are we sounding?
Better? Rather than, oh, okay. Just the reverse. Oh yeah. I guess you could turn yourself just a little bit down. That'd work.
On my end, we're hitting like the same part in the bar.
Okay. You seem even. All right. Anno says we seem even. Let's go.
Perfect. Okay. I turned myself down ever so slightly, and I turned you up a little bit. So this is perfect. Nice. Okay, we did it, y'all.
Hey, Anno's a moderator. I didn't actually realize that. Hey, Anno, you got powers. Be good.
I made everybody that's usually here that I don't think anybody knows how to be. I don't actually think anyone knows how to be a mod on YouTube. I don't actually know.
Yeah, personally I don't really know either.
Yeah, I still don't know. I'm pretty sure that Ralph got like timed out or banned, and like we don't know how to unban him.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I'm pretty sure that's a thing.
I think we did, and then we just didn't know how to fix it.
I have no idea. But yeah, like Peach is a mod, Enno's a mod, Meech is a mod, I think. I mean P-Stone a mod. Yeah, I think that might be it.
That's funny.
But yeah, welcome in everybody. How y'all doing? Hopefully everybody's good. We are vibing. I've went through and I have updated and commented on all of the responded to all of the comments for people commenting on videos and stuff like that, at least reacting to them. Sorry, we've been
that's why I got a notification. I was wondering what you were doing with that.
I feel like we were dropping the ball a little bit, so I was like, okay, I need to react to people, I need to comment on these things. So yeah, I'm gonna try to be more on top of that going forward because I totally forgot.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah,
something exciting though to start it off. Did you look at our number, KJ?
Yeah, we're almost at 100. We're
one away.
One follower away from 100.
We're one follower away from 100. This is hype.
I said in my retweet. Oh, we hit 100. Never mind. We hit it. Let's go.
Wait, we hit it?
I don't know who followed.
Who was our number 100?
I don't know who did it, but I literally retweeted. If you follow us, you'll be our favorite person for the year. So, whoever. Whoever followed.
Whoever followed the channel just now, if you're listening, thank you. You are now our favorite person for the entire year.
I think I might know you. Okay. Oh my goodness, that is super hype. But yeah, we're covering the last story today, which should be a good time. I think it should be a good time. I know a lot of people seem to not know anything about this game. I know Spice very much loves this game. I'll try not to disappoint you, Spice. I know we've had some conversations.
No
I'll try my best not
to
disappoint you.
Spice just like rage quits both our channels.
I mean, nah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
Never even heard of it. So, I mean, we haven't started. Yeah, Polly has it. I actually sold the game very recently.
Wait, you've already sold it?
Yes. I didn't keep it for the podcast. I sold it.
Dude, you gotta at least wait till after our review before you get rid of the game, man. But I'm glad we're not recording this part.
Yeah, no, I'm like, I mean, I was gonna say on the recorded part that I sold it, but I won't do that.
Okay, dude.
But no, it wasn't that.
We didn't even get to the review, and he's already like, and this is done.
Polly, the game's been sold for like over a week now. Or
I knew you were gonna sell it, but you didn't tell me you were selling it. You never told me.
I sold it. I sold it when I told you I think I'm gonna sell it. I was at the store selling it.
Oh, you sold it at that. Okay, yes. Okay, never mind. You did. Yeah. You did say that you had sold stuff there. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That one retro store or whatever, right?
Yeah, it was worth it. Yeah.
That's why you had the credit. That's why you had the store credit.
That was part of the credit. Yeah, it was worth it. It was like. And just because I sold the game does not mean I did not necessarily like the game. That's what I'll say. And now
nobody watches this review.
And now everybody leaves. He sold the game. He hates it. Yeah, no, that's not the case. Although I will preface we'll preface all of this with, if Grandia 3 was not a gift from the community, I would have sold it.
Is it even worth any money? Because generally I see it for stupid cheap places. You
can get like $20, but it's like a $20-$25 game. It's definitely not worth that, but like I'll take that over it being on my shelf. Like
the person you have to pay the person to take the game. That's the way it should be with Grandia 3.
That game was something. Oh my goodness.
I'm glad we're not reviewing that a second time.
Oh yeah, Willis. It was not good. Like if you wanna hear our like just raw thoughts on Grandia 3, go check out last month's podcast. Mm-hmm. Oh man, it was we were demoralized. Like I've never finished a game and been so relieved that I didn't have to play it anymore. Like, I don't think I've ever had that feeling. Like, just, oh my goodness. It was, yeah.
And it was poor timing too, because I was going through I still am, I shouldn't say am going through medical issues. And like, it was the game I was playing off stream to like, excite me, to have some happy, and it was freaking Grandia 3, and I'm just like, I want my 40 hours back or my 30 plus hours back. I want them back. I am gonna contact Square and be like, you owe me 30 hours.
Oh my goodness, you missed the chance to leave this game for the last podcast. Port Break, you're not wrong.
The funny thing is I lost the manual to Grandia 3, I guess, at some point, or it's somewhere in this house. It's just in a different box or something, but I don't have the manual anymore. And I was looking at my game being like, I don't even want you complete anymore.
Like I said, it's chilling on the shelf. It will never leave the shelf. Like,
basically, I'm like, I have the Grandia collection, except for Extreme, and we'll just leave it at that. I just won't look at it ever again.
Nope. Shane, welcome in. Hell yeah. Yo,
hey everybody. Hi, Dark. We got Dark, we got Aaron, we got Willis, we got Spice, we got Shane, we got Port Break.
Yeah, all the homies coming through.
Yeah, we got Spice. Did I say Spice? I said Spice. Roy.
You did.
That's the
Spice was not going to miss this. Spice loves this game. I knew.
Crowned.
Since we got Crown's here as well. Yep. Since we said we were going to play this, Spice was like, yo, I need to see that. So I knew he was not going to miss this.
And Spice, I didn't sell my copy.
Okay. Shots fired. Shots fired. Sometimes you have to just realize that after you beat a game, you're not going to play it again. And when you realize that, you take the game off the shelf and you recoup some of the money back to then put into other games.
Did you end up getting what you paid for it though? Yeah. Did you get close?
Not too far off.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. No, nice. I close to. I mean, for what?
What's it worth now? It's like $100.
I think it's
Canadian.
Like,
I mean.
Oh, Canadian. I don't know conversion rates.
Okay, what's American?
I think it was like 60 or 70.
Okay, that would make sense because I neither one of us had the CDs, so technically we didn't have it complete.
Yeah, exactly. So
I need to find the music CDs because I actually really I mean I'll say later, but yeah, I need to find the music CDs. So
we can start.
Complete it.
We can like officially start. Yeah, fuck it, let's do it. Okay, so we got 3, 2, 1. We're good. All right, so welcome everybody to the next episode of Turn-Based Tangents. I'm KJ.
I'm Polly.
And we're reviewing The Last Story, which is a Wii game devved by Mistwalker. So anybody that doesn't know anything about Mistwalker, they've put out some heat. Like, specifically Lost Odyssey. Lost Odyssey, I will preach about Lost Odyssey. Like, everybody that knows me knew that, like, we were covering a Mistwalker game. I was going to bring up Lost Odyssey at least twice. Like, let's be real. But yeah, no. So Mistwalker is actually a company that was created by some big names that people will know. Specifically Sakaguchi, who is credited with like being basically the father of Final Fantasy, effectively. And all the music is done by Nobuo Uematsu, which again, somebody that was very prevalent in the Final Fantasy world. And I think they were on pretty much everything up through 10, right? I think it is. Yeah. I believe it's through 10.
I think so, yeah. I think they start changing off around Final Fantasy 10, yeah. But yeah, there it is. There it is.
Yeah, so Polly has her copy. I had a copy of the game, however, and do not take this as me not liking the game or anything, but I knew I wasn't going to replay it, so I did sell my copy.
Don't watch the VOD of this.
It's okay. It's okay. Like I said, it's fine. Sometimes it happens. I have sold plenty of games that like I enjoyed but will never replay. That is the thing. Like maybe that's a little bit of foreshadowing. Maybe it's not. Maybe I did hate the game. We'll never know. But actually, you will know if you watch the rest of this. So keep tune in.
Keep listening.
Continue to tune in.
Keep listening.
Yeah. But yeah, so
I have the collectors. I think this is the collector's edition that comes with the art book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the collector's edition came with like an art book, a CD, and I think one other thing in the game.
Yeah, I don't have the CDs. This particular one, I got a bit of a deal on it because it didn't have the CDs, and it was a little bit torn in one corner. The box, like it's like up here, like a little bit of a torn there. Okay. So I got a pretty good deal on this. But at some point I'll get the CD to complete it because I mean the CD is like $5 on eBay, so I'm like I can complete it at any time. But one thing that I really liked with the collector's edition, one, it looks like a book, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, the collector's edition did the outer case looked like a book. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I wish more RPGs did that because I mean, RPGs just feel like, interactive books sometimes. And I think this is just a really cool concept for cover for collector's edition. But I
Mhm.
also absolutely love the little art book that they included. Like, it's just a little one, but seeing their like concept art and the process of everything and like the characters and how they like figured out the characters and their outfits and stuff like that was really cool. It's all in this little cute little art book. And the cover like wraps around, so it's like you have the main
Mhm.
character on the front, and then like it wraps around, which I think is really cool. It's the same cover that is, but I thought it was really neat, and I like what you get with the collectors and stuff like that. But yeah, it just
Yeah,
looks so
I mean,
cool.
and that's probably a great segue into just like the art of the game in general. I'm gonna defer
Yeah.
to you. I'm gonna defer to you as the artist because I have some. I actually think I might have some hot takes, but we'll see.
I'm gonna start with the concept art since I already have like the book here. So I want to start with the concept art because I think the concept art is actually fantastic. I think the style of the characters. So I'll pull one up since it's the main character. So I think the concept art is beautiful. Like the drawing is really nice. It's like shaded and detailed, and like looking through this art book, it's a little bit of a spoiler. Fun fact: it actually spoils one of the bosses,
Oh,
like one
that's
of like the
wonderful.
later end game bosses.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so if you do
So
get the
don't look
collector's
at
edition,
this.
stay away from the art book.
Yeah, don't look all the way through here. It also spoils like some of the characters and stuff like that as well. So yeah, don't look at the art book until after you only have played the game. But I'm glad that I didn't, because I usually don't look. I'm terrible at this, but I usually don't look at the manual because I'm always scared of spoilers. So I did not look at the art book before playing the game. I just looked at like the cover and stuff. But it's beautiful. Like it's absolutely beautiful. I won't show too much of it because it does actually spoil. But like, oh my god, that's a spoiler too. Okay, this isn't a spoiler. There we go.
Oh
Later,
my
I just keep
goodness.
flipping pages, and I was like, spoiler. But for those listening, I'm just showing off the art book that comes with the collector's edition. But yeah, concept art is great. It translating to the game though, I feel like not quite. So like going through the concept art book, it is rich with color. It's beautiful. It's rich with color, and I think part of the thing is that you can customize your characters like outfit colors.
Mhm.
I think that might be part of it because it kind of just defaults you into like generally blacks and grays, and then you kind of go in and manually change it and brighten it up. But I also just kind of found that the concept art was very how do I put like very alive, very bright, very vibrant,
Mhm.
and some of that didn't quite translate in the game. So I think I like the concept art a little bit more.
That's fair.
But I also okay, so with the character models, some of the characters looked really creepy when they smiled. Like they were going for a very like anime slash kind of look to it. So like they had like the anime eyes and like the anime mouths and stuff like that. And sometimes when they had the characters like smile or talk to you, sometimes it would get stuck in a smile, and it just looked creepy in like the dialogue scenes. The ones where it like panned out and showed the two characters and they're talking to each other, sometimes they would get like freeze framed on this like weird creepy smile, and I'm like and I'm like, this
That
is
is an
just
attention to
unnerving.
detail that I did not pick up on because I was not really like I was not really looking at like I don't know. I definitely agree with you on the fact that like the game felt very muted. I think there were a lot of situations where I was like at first we were talking about it and you would mention that you like were doing all of the color things and I was like I'm not going to change the default colors. And then honestly, it got to the point where I was like, "Oh, I have to do this cuz a lot of the characters like the characters that have like white or blonde hair all start to kind of blend in together. And I was like, oh no. And then on top of that, two of them, like there were two different characters that were mages too. And I'm just like, oh, I have to change their colors. Like, so this person has to have blue on, this person has to have green, this person's going to have orange, this person's going to have red, because I needed to differentiate between all the different characters, because the game throws all of the characters at you basically at once. Like you almost have
well at the beginning.
You get a lot of your party members at the very beginning, and like they don't really give you a lot of differentiation between them. Like in the very beginning, you're just like, okay, these two people cast magic. Then you start to realize like, oh, this is my fire mage, this is my ice mage, this is my wind mage. It's like, okay, now you kind of have a little bit better of an understanding about that. But in the beginning, not at all. So yeah, I felt like I was like, wow, the colors are very muted. Now, that said, when you start getting into various places in the world, like in the maps, they start to look a little different, and it does get to be like a little bit more colorful.
Yeah,
even like the dungeons, I would say, like some of the dungeons they still did a really good job of like mixing combinations of light with like browns
as you got
and reds
through,
and different things,
like the first little intro bit, I totally agree. Like it started to like open up a little bit with the like the dungeons and stuff like that. But if you don't customize your character's colors, they all default very bland. And I told KJ that's exactly what I did is right at the beginning. And he thought he was just like, oh. And I was like, yeah, I just color coded them. So I knew who was who on the map. So I didn't have to like think like, oh, okay, I've got three guys in black over there. Which one is it? like honestly, which character is it? Because they just default to these like just like blacks and grays color schemes. So it was often hard for me to be like, okay, who's in that corner? Who just ran that way? Like, why is my party, like, why is that member over there? And like, color coding them made life so much easier.
Honestly, it wasn't even for like in battle for me. It was just like it was mostly early on when I didn't really know the characters. Having them having different colors on made me again think like, oh, Yurik is wearing blue, so I know that's who that is. Like when it came to like walking around and like seeing them in cutscenes or like those different things, that's when I started to remember like, oh, okay, well, this is this person's backstory, and like they're wearing blue. So it was definitely
it helps
just,
with like remembering the character.
Cue.
I didn't even think about that. That's smart.
Yeah. It wasn't because like when actually battling, like, I mean, we're gonna get into this a little bit later, but like I feel like I not relied on, but like definitely used the supporting cast a little more than you did. So like it was more so I'm just like, I don't care where you are on the field. I just need you doing these various actions, and like I'm handling my business fighting whatever. Like but that wasn't necessarily the case for me in terms of like color coding them on the field, because I wasn't even honestly in terms of their placement on the field, because I couldn't control them. I wasn't thinking about it, right?
Fair, yeah, and that's totally fair because they are AI controlled. But I like your point of like changing the colors also just help you kind of like connect the character a little bit better. And I think that's a brilliant thing to like recommend if you're gonna play this game. Definitely color code your characters. Like go through, customize the character colors, so it just adds a little bit more life to the character. Because I did that super early on. I think the brightness of my TV is not as great, so I found sometimes
the brightness in this game, it was a very muted game. Like
so there was like colors, a lot of times where like they would hide behind something in like a dark corner, and I didn't know if it was like Mirania, Yurik, or freaking what's his name? Dagran. Sometimes I didn't know who was at the corner because they all defaulted to like the really dark, like black kind of color scheme. And then the muted colors along with the dark shadows, they would literally hide in that shadow. And I'm going, I have no idea who's over there. If I need to protect them or not. Like, I don't know if they're a DPS over there or if they're a mage. So like when I see like enemies going to them and stuff, so I'm like, okay, I need to switch the colors. And I did that like super super early on. But honestly, it did actually help me connect the characters. And we'll get into like the story plot and stuff like that a little later. But I laugh really hard at what I did, like what I color coded somebody as. I think it's really funny.
I feel like the AI
but-
in your game was a lot more dumb than the AI in my game, because
I don't get it. Did you play off the Wii or the Wii U?
Hiding. None of my characters that were like damage dealers were hiding. Like they were always in the thick of things.
Mine hid. I had often Dagrin would just run off the screen somewhere. He wouldn't even go after the enemies. He was just gone to like some corner, and then he like hiding behind a pillar for a little bit, and then he'd come out and attack some things. I'm like, you are a freaking DPS. Why are you hiding behind? Come out and fight them with me.
That is so wild. Yeah,
them.
none of like the mages would like stay in the back. So like Lowell or whatever his name is, and Uric and Marania and Callista, they would all stay in the back. But like Dagrin and Seren were in the fight all the time. And it was
like 50-50. They would actually be like fighting and stuff, especially in the beginning.
That is so wild.
And I'm like, I don't know why it just keeps like they would just kind of like run off. At one point, Dagrin got stuck in a wall.
You had a very interesting experience.
In a boss fight, he got stuck in a wall, and I couldn't use him at all, and he wouldn't get out of the wall. And I was like, dude, I'm just like having the solo boss right now because you won't get out of I don't know what happened. I think he did one of his moves, like one of his one of his attacks, and then he just glitched into the wall.
What happened? So I guess we can start talking about the battle system a little bit more. So like, the way the combat system works, right? So you're only controlling the main character. However, you have like the ability to use you get like almost like a stamina meter type thing that if it's full, you can issue commands to the entire party. You can
command. Yep.
And so it's either like you end up being able to issue either like they have typically a support skill type thing, a offensive skill type thing, or eventually they end up getting a special, and then they also have like retreat, which is just run away and hide, right? So if I were in that situation where somebody were glitched into the wall or glitched out, I would have tried to then command them to do something.
Oh, I absolutely did. He did the command in the freaking wall.
Oh, that's amazing.
I was upset.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I had him do his I think it was, what was it, like power strike or power gain or whatever
Something
the heck his one move was, the left move, and I had him do it, and he did it in the wall. And I was like, and I'm the boss. Okay, in perspective, it's like I was in this kind of dungeony thingy. It was early-ish in the game. And I think it was chapter I don't know 8 or 9 or something. It was early-ish on, and I'm fighting this boss, and the boss is completely on the left side of the screen. I'm not even kidding. He's not in the middle. He's not near where Dagrin got stuck. He's on the left side of the screen. And then there's this weird pillar rock formation thing in the right corner, and Dagrin just got stuck in there doing an attack. And then I waited for my thing to build up. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to command him. It's totally fine. I could hold down the fort, even though I'm yelling at the TV being like, Dagrin. I'm pretty sure I yelled at the characters sometimes, and it was probably just what the fuck?
Wow.
But I was like, Dagrin, get out of the wall. And finally it builds up. I do the command. I'm like, okay, this is great. I'm gonna have my mages do their thing. I'm gonna attack. Dagger's gonna come out of the wall and back me up, and I'll take the front and he'll get the back. And no, he does the attack in the wall.
The funny thing is,
I wish I was recording it, because I had so many little things like that where I was like, okay, but I mean, I can forgive it because it's a Wii game, right? And I feel like
I felt like the AI was good. I actually thought the AI was pretty good. I never had an issue other than
50-50.
Another thing about the battle system is there's a life system. So you have your health bar, but then every character in every battle you get into, every character has 5 lives. So you have like a mode that you can basically go into where you draw all of the enemies' attention to you. And when you're in
which
that
was super
mode,
handy.
when you're in that mode, you can also revive your characters. Otherwise,
Also handy.
They revive in like a minute
Timer,
or 2 minutes or
yeah,
something
they
like
had
that.
like a
There's some
timer
kind
on
of
them.
timer. Yeah. But
As long as they weren't out of lives. As long as they weren't
unless they were out of lives, then you were pretty much screwed. But like yeah, I felt like the AI was so good. And it was like, other than the only thing I would have wished for with the AI was, again, Seren always went aggro. So she would have 1 life and she would just be like, she'd be on the front line. I'm like, yo, you have 1 life. We don't have meter yet. I cannot get Mirania to revive you. What the hell are you doing? And it was just like consistent, like especially later game. Yo, the last couple of fights, Seren died a few times because I had to like I'm just like, this is so ridiculous. And there's like a lack of items or anything. So yeah, you
we
just
played this very differently.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I feel like sometimes they were fantastic, right? Like I think my most consistently I think my most consistently person who would like I was like never had to really worry about was Lisa. Other than Lisa, using the game name. I found she was good.
Like,
I found
Mirania. And I was like, oh, that's
Mirania
right.
was pretty good.
Mirania
and
was great.
Was pretty good. For some reason, Lowell, like he's a mage, but he would like sometimes like run in and attack, and I'm like, no.
Did you look at his stats?
Get your butt back behind the pillar and cast magic. Like, but I was finding I was using my command to make him do his magic, because sometimes he would just go up and like attack for a little while. And I'm like, no, stop attacking things.
The thing is, Lowell, he's like an in-between. Like he actually,
I think he was an in-between, but I found him squishy. Like I found like if he did go into an attack, I was like, no, you're gonna die. And sure enough, they would like whack him and die. I'm like, okay. Bye.
So I am curious, how did you build out like because different armor when you upgrade it does different like are set for different things. So the way I built him was like I wanted him to be able to do both, but then I also made sure he had armor that gave him more physical defense instead of magic defense. That way he could go out into the fight in case I needed another person to kind of like take some of the load off of me and Seren. So that was kind of how I sort of built him. Like I went through, and one of the cool things like with the upgrade system is that like you get items that you can then upgrade weapons and armor. And so like
which is super cool.
I was trying to just like make sure that I was playing to the characters what they were kind of missing. So like I knew he was going to go out and do his own thing. So I made sure he had physical defense. Whereas like I knew all the mages needed magic defense because like they were just staying in the back. I was like, perfect. Stay in the back, cast your magic, do your thing. And yeah, we'll go from there. But
yeah, I one thing that I really liked was the customization of the characters and stuff, like the armor and everything you could get. And the armor that you would put on changed their appearance, which was kind of cool. Which was anytime I changed the armor, I had to like go in and play with my color settings again, because I was like, no, I'm like, this color clashes with this color, so I'm like, no, this has to be a good accent color.
I was one and done. I changed the colors once and that was their color. One and done.
I had a little too much fun with that, but I loved that your upgrading equipment was a little less frequent, which was cool. And you get so many different kinds of weapons and stuff. So I built the cast of characters that you could get that you have access to the game, you pretty well start with pretty well all of them, which is really cool. I like that concept with a JRPG like this, because I'm so used to RPGs where you like go on a quest and you collect your characters as you go along. Having all of them at the start made for you being able to like customize them right early on and kind of build them a little bit how I mean, you had your mages and your thing, but you could like customize them and like really set them up early on, and then they just kind of switched between like some missions, some of them would come, some of them wouldn't come, and just kind of flop that like that. But one thing I was telling KJ that I absolutely love about this game, and I wish more JRPGs did, that if one of them left your party temporarily, you could still take their equipment
Yeah,
off
that
and
was dope.
on and move it around, which is so handy. And I wish more JRPGs would do that, because one of the most infuriating things is having a character leave your party and they have some really good equipment on them and you don't know if they're coming back or when they're coming back, and they actually leave with it and you don't get that item back. Like some JRPGs will put it back into your inventory, but some they just go off with your items and you're like, can you come back with that badass helmet, please? Like, I need.
It was
that
also
back.
nice. It was also nice in the regard of like there were long stretches where some characters weren't in your party. However,
Yes.
because so like for example, I think yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter the specific character, but it was nice when it was like, oh, okay, this character isn't in the party, and not only do when they come back they like level up faster, that was kind of nice, it's also a case of them being gone, you could still upgrade their equipment. So even if they're not getting levels, at least you could upgrade their equipment if all of your other characters were upgraded. So like I was able to keep all of my characters' equipment pretty well on par because I kind of foresaw various things and felt like I knew who the final party was going to be, if anybody was going to leave the party, anything like that, or if I was going to have any options. Like I knew who I was going to be rolling with, right? So I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to make sure these characters have upgraded things because this is how I want this to be. So
Yeah, and it was nice that the characters didn't have like they couldn't use an equipment because they weren't high enough level. They didn't have any like level caps or anything on the equipment or the weapons and stuff like that, which was really super cool. So yeah, you could literally customize them, level them up, their items and stuff. So when they did get back into your party and then they just like you kill one thing and their experience goes through the roof.
Yep.
They were at least dealing good damage and they still had decent defense, or they still had decent magic defense of the item, the equipments you had, which is such a amazing quality of life thing to do if you're gonna have party splits. If you're gonna implement that, it's such a nice thing to have where you could still level things up so that when they do come back, I get it doesn't make sense because the characters left, so they took the armor with them, but like this is a fantasy world. Just give us the quality of life upgrade, and that's what this game had, which was fantastic because like anytime somebody was out of the party for a portion of time and I'd find like a really good like mage dagger thing, or I'd find a really good armor, I can like stick it on them before they came back, and you know they weren't so squishy when they did come back, while I powered leveled them to like so that they would catch up, right? So in the sense of like you like kill like two things and they just like go from like level like 9 to 15 and you're like yep, this is happening. So I honestly think with these fantasy games, like I think in the developer's mind, they're like, oh, but you don't need to put hyper realism into it. And I think if you're going to do party splits, The Last Story does it so nice, like reference this game and do it like that. Because being able to level up the equipment, or even just getting the stuff back, like even when they leave the party for a duration of time, and they're gonna leave the party for a duration of time, at least get the stuff back that you upgraded, that you put on them. Especially for first playthroughs, because we're not following a strategy guide. We're not like we're playing this game and having it suddenly ambushed on us that character's gone for a while, and then they take these stuff that I just put on them. Either if you didn't have a previous save point where you could have taken everything off before they left, you're kind of just like SOL of having that stuff back. This game does it so well, and I very much appreciated it. It made me not hate party splits. Usually I don't like them either.
I didn't mind the party splits in this game at all.
I didn't either, because it got me to use, like, I liked that it did that sometimes, because it got you to use some of the other characters and they kind of like swapped around, and you didn't end up being like super overpowered in some cases, because I was like, I mean, you have the potential of so many characters, right? So in those instances, it made it a little bit more of like, you know, balanced out in terms of like what you were fighting and the bosses you were fighting and stuff, which like sometimes they drop you down to 4 characters, sometimes they'd have you at 5, sometimes, you know, that sort of stuff. So they kind of like walked around that.
Early on, it definitely felt like there were characters that were dead weight, because it was like they were so under leveled that you had to basically just like push through. And I will say,
one of them particular I'm thinking of.
2 different things I was thinking about. One, you mentioning the fact that the like party splits, the way they did it, like the chapter system was really weird. There were like 44 chapters or something like that in total, but you never knew when it was going to be a long chapter or when it was going to be a short chapter. Like there were some cases where it was like, oh, I sat down for 2 hours and I got through 10 chapters. And I'm like, but then there were some times where I sat down for 2 hours and I got through like 3 chapters. And then also like chapters were tied to optional quests and different things like that. And it was kind of all over the place with like difficulty swings and all of that. Like that was a weird structural decision.
Yeah.
But I think again, like these things kind of tie in, because if you look at it like, oh, they're splitting the party, and those party splits are tied to when different story events are happening in different chapters. It's like, it makes sense as to why they would be like, oh, well, you don't know when there's going to be a chapter change, because they're so frequent or infrequent depending on where you are in the game. And you don't like, you don't, because you haven't played the game, you don't necessarily know like, oh, I should grind here because I'm going to be stuck with this character, because they do give you opportunities to like grind with these things they call summon circles. Which I didn't actually end up using until the very last one in the game, funny enough. But
nice.
Yeah, and so like, because you don't know really when to do all of that, then it's like, okay, the fact that they give you the option makes sense. And to answer the question, there were 44 chapters and the game was about 20 hours. I think my final save was like 1750 something in terms of time. So
mine was higher. Oh, right. I did all the
extra stuff too.
Yeah. I did
some of it, but not all of it.
I actually think they were, so this being a book it dawned on me after I had beaten it, and I was really thinking about the chapters and stuff like that. It kind of reminded me of how like a book does it. So like sometimes you read like you're reading a story, and like the one chapter is like 2 pages, and then you get to the next chapter and it's like 12 pages long. And that's kind of what it feels like they're referencing. They're like really telling you, which I mean, it's in the title, they're really telling you a story, which was kind of jarring for somebody who has the experience of JRPGs, for the sense of like, I'm used to things like RPG games, like spacing them out evenly generally, or things like that, if they even do have a chapter system. Whereas after I had reflected on it, because it was like sometimes you'd get through like 10 in 2 hours and like 1 or 2 in 2 hours, right? But it did kind of remind me of a storybook a little bit more like that. And even the narrative in the game, it narrates a lot, is very story centric and stuff. So I think they were just kind of trying to do that, and keep that little bit of, like you said, element of surprise, where you didn't know when a character was coming back, or when party splits would happen, or when they happened, how long it was till that person would come back. And if you felt like you were under leveled, you did have these summoning circles where after you had beat like a bunch of it, like the enemies and stuff like that, there'd be like a summoning circle there that you could do where you could fight them over and over and over again until your heart's content, or to however level you wanted to get to. I only ended up ever using 1. And the funny thing is I think I was really under leveled. So I did a summoning circle, and it was one of my only time. I think it was the only time I game over. No, I game overed on a boss too. It was one of the rare times I game overed because I think I was under leveled. That's when you're like one of the first optional things comes up. So I started doing those, and then I didn't have an issue with levels ever again. But I did a summoning circle and I got annihilated, and I was like, what happened? What just happened? Because it was like my characters were all running forward and I did a summoning circle. So I was just soloing everything. And then when they finally got back, like I had died multiple times, and then they came back in, and then by the time like I didn't have a revive yet on myself. It just ended up being like I ended up dying one too many times, and I think
your
it was 5
AI
lives.
was real bad.
What's that?
I said your AI was real bad.
I don't know what happened. We played the same game.
The best part is my only game overs were actually in solo fights. So when you first fight when you go to like the top of the like trial area.
Oh, okay.
I game over there once.
Okay.
And then when you're leaving that trial area and the asshole poisons you or inflicts death on you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I died there 4 times. I could not, like, because the screen, when you get death inflicted on you in this game, the screen starts to go black. And that was the first time that had happened to me. And I was just like, you got to be fucking kidding me. And it's just like, you're racing against the clock. There's no way to cure it. You have 30 seconds. That was the trial area, the boss at the top of the trial area definitely was rough. Because there were just a bunch of things to that point. I hadn't had to use like any of the various mechanics. Like
that was one of the only times where you actually really like needed to start using it, because bosses from then on started to need those mechanics.
And see, that was the thing. Like the bosses always had the so you have a thing like the main character's attack can like diffuse the various summoning circles that mages put down. So like that they played on heavily. It was like whether it was healing, whether it was like reflecting,
you had to be really using that,
breaking up the like holy magic, whether it was burn, poison, like or freeze. They did all of that really well. Like they made you, there were multiple bosses you had to diffuse the circles to beat. They didn't. The only boss you had to use the slash command or the like vertical run up the wall and come down with the attack was that fight. And it was like I didn't even know how to do the run off the wall attack until that fight. I learned how to do it in that fight because I was like, they're giving me this mechanic, but in a lot of cases, I'm not going to be thinking about running up a wall. So when they showed me the tutorial,
not when you're being like overthrown with baddies, you just don't have time. You're like, no, I got to kill these things.
Especially because it like doesn't stun you, but like it's a slight like stun lock if you do that. But that said, once I got to that fight and had to use those things, I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to start using these. And so like I went out of my way to like run off of walls and attack people because I was like, fuck it. Like that's just how we're doing this now.
It's funny that you say that because I found that I started to use like a lot of the mechanics and stuff when I did the optional things. Like when I was doing the optional things, I was just like messing around with stuff and doing some of the mechanics, and some of them you needed to do it. Like one of them was this you had to go investigate this haunted mansion, and that's where I actually started using the crossbow more and like switching between like arrows and stuff like that, because it's an enemy you end up fighting a very similar boss later on where you have to shoot it with silver arrows to hurt it.
Oh yes, I remember that. Yep.
Yeah. So that actually happens in one of the optional dungeons, like chapters before that.
That's
so
funny.
If you had done it, you had already had like figured it out and stuff.
They did tell you though. That was the good thing. They did, because that was a later boss, and they did tell you like we have to shoot it with silver, and then every enemy was dropping silver arrows. It was like, oh, okay, cool. Like which is nice because it made it so it didn't punish you for not doing the optional stuff. Yeah.
I like that. They did that for like a few of those different mechanical things where they like told you how to do it. Except for, you know what, maybe I don't remember him actually. No, he didn't tell you how to do it. So yeah, doing that trial boss, you're right. That was one of the only instances where they didn't tell you.
Now, it was just that he had a shield and you had to basically like do random things to try to get, like, I had to go back into some of the tutorial menus and I was like, what the hell is this? But yeah, no, I definitely missed a ton of random side quest stuff. Like I did the, I went on the ship. And like found Urik's, like dad's dagger or whatever. I did that.
Oh yeah, I love that.
That was
like,
I did things that seemed like they were going to be for character story. Like I went and I talked to, did you like have the side conversations with Lowell and Marania? Or not Marania,
yes, I did. Yeah,
Seren?
which I'm a little okay. So I'm a little disgruntled with that on the sense of this was character development.
Oh yeah,
that you could miss
so much.
You could miss it entirely and not have context for like your party members, which. Yeah. I didn't like that was missable. I don't think they should have made it missable because it wasn't even an optional dungeon or anything. It was literally just a optional time of talking to them that you would get this context.
Like,
and it explains so much, yeah, because there are scenes later on in the game between like a couple of the characters where I would have been horribly confused had I not of like done that, because there was like no real signs before that was a thing until you do these like optional little story bits, which they weren't chapters or anything like that. They weren't set up that way. You just kind of stumbled. You were lucky if you went back to the tavern at a particular point, I think and talked to them. I think they even did it
a little bit more weird too, because some of the characters, so like when you, I think it was like chapter 14 and 15, like those are like Yurik and Marania story building chapters, right?
Why didn't they put it there?
But then you have to go and, like you said, you have to go back to the tavern and you have to talk to Lowell and Seren. And you have to talk to them in a specific order.
Yeah, it's a specific order too. That's right. I remember because I was like, she was like suddenly mad, and I was like, "Why are you mad?" And then she mentions Lowell, and I was like, oh, am I supposed to go talk to him first? So like I'm like running around the tavern trying to find this guy. Finally find him in the guy's bedroom or whatever, just kind of sit there, and you talk to him. And then I went back to talk to her, and then it actually gave me a prompt to continue the conversation. So it's like, okay, if you were gonna do this in a specific order, could you not have made this more obvious?
Yep, I did the exact same thing. And yeah, honestly, it's just one of those things where I agree with you. I think if you're gonna give us backstory on characters, don't make it hidden or optional, because honestly,
please don't. We want that character development. Like
going through at first, I was like, oh, Lowell is a character I was just gonna write off. I was like, no, I want no part of this character. But then once you learn his story, you're like, huh,
you feel for him.
See why he is the way he is, and it
explains the reason why he is the way he is. Yeah, and so you feel for him a little bit, and like Yurik, I spent half the game wondering why he had an eye patch. Like I thought he just had that because like one of the little optional things you could do, he kind of goes into detail a little bit about his dad, and I was like, oh well, maybe it's a memento eye patch. He just wears it. He just wears it covering an eye because he wants to remind himself of his dad. But like, you get actually context. If you talk to Yurik at this random specific time, you actually get to like find out context about that portion of things. So like these are actual crucial character development things that you learn about these characters. This is you're kind of thrown into the game where you're kind of a band of mercenaries, and they're just like all friendly with each other and already knowing each other. So you don't get that like meeting the character and learning who they are portion of JRPGs. They're just kind of already there,
learning each other. Yeah, they already knew each other, and it's like you don't, like you said, you don't get that sort of like, we're going on an adventure and we're going to learn about the different characters and stuff like that. And you're also not picking really, honestly, you're not really picking up other characters on the go either. So it's like you have all your characters and they all know each other. So like
Yeah, so it's like you don't even get to learn a whole lot about them, except for you get to know more about Dagrin because he's so connected with the main character. But with everybody else, they're just kind of there, and you don't know anything about them. You're just kind of thrown into your party, and you're like, okay. And I honestly didn't start caring about them until you started doing some of the like the little optional chapters where you go off with Mirania, you go off with Yurik, and then when you get these optional story bits that should not have been optional, I didn't really like have a super big connection to them until I like got those character building moments. So to have something so crucial that like gives you context of these characters behind something that's not even an optional chapter you could have chosen, that's legitimately just kind of a chance that if you went back to a tavern and started talking to people that you kind of uncovered it. You didn't even have to go back to the tavern. I often went back to like go talk to the equipment salesperson because I was like, oh, does she have anything cool? Or I'd go over to Horace's shop just around beside it and like upgrade stuff. So like I went back very frequently. I was lucky that I went back when I did because I'm pretty sure you didn't have to. So
you didn't.
You could have missed it entirely. And I'm like, I would have missed crucial story of characters that like, I get it's supposed to be like it's told from Zale's perspective and it's Zale's journey. I get it. But like, give me my
This
character
is my story.
like stories. Yeah, I ended up like really liking Yurik, knowing more about his character, why he was wearing a high patch and things like that.
When
like
he took the
I ended
eye
up
patch
really
off,
liking
though,
Yurik. Mirania, I thought her connection with things was interesting. I even started to feel like I didn't like Lowell the whole game up until that point.
I mean, yeah, before you get his background, I can understand why you don't like him. And honestly, like you don't get his background until relatively late. Or not relatively late. I would say probably close to halfway through the game almost. But when Yurik took the eye patch off and got like the super move, oh my goodness, that was so good.
So good though.
Yeah.
And like and he explains like how he did it and stuff like that. I was like, Yurik, you're fucking cool. Like I like you. And there's several characters and stuff like that, with that stuff, and that you got to know about them a little bit more. And I'm going like with Lowell, he's just kind of like the ice mage guy or whatever. And I'm like, okay, you freeze everything, that's great. But he starts off in the game very like lecherous and very like womanizing and very like that kind of a character, which usually doesn't like reside with me. So getting more context with his character and everything was really important. And honestly, I recommend anybody going to play this game, please frequently go back and check the tavern, because you will get extra plot points of your characters. You will get extra dialogue. Please go back and do that.
Yeah.
It's so important. Because like you need, like, it gives you so much context with several characters, and even just like the dialogue between some of them as well that you might have missed if you hadn't gone back to the tavern and like after certain after chapters and stuff like that. Almost anytime we got back to the city and was able to move around, I went back to the tavern.
Same.
Just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But yeah, so honestly, with the you ended up playing right off the Wii, right? Or the Wii U?
Sort of, not exactly.
Okay. Maybe I was just cursed with my version of the game's AI was just like, no.
Maybe.
I found unlike KJ, who's like, yeah, I'll rely on my people. My AI in my game was a little weird. I had my mages would group together behind the same pillar sometimes, and I can't control them, right? Like, so your teammates you can't control in this game. You can only control yourself, except for certain parts of the game where you can then control one of your teammates based on plot stuff. I'm trying to be a little bit vague for people who don't want spoilers, but there are certain portions you worry about. But generally speaking, you are using the same main character with the same mechanics and the same sort of thing. And so they all grouped behind, like, so I had 3 mages, 3. And they all decided to hide behind the same pillar, and the boss just nuked the pillar and killed all 3 of them. And I just remember looking at their dead bodies like, why would all of you go under the same pillar? Like, there's pillars all over the place. He hasn't like destroyed anything. No, you all hide behind the same one. No, wait, no, I think at that point it was 3, because I think it was Yurik, Marania, and Lisa. Okay. So I think those 3 were the ones that I had at the point. They were all behind the same pillar, and then the boss was like, oh, pillar, and nukes it. And I'm just standing there with my jaw on the floor being like, that's everybody dead. And then so if you wanted to revive your characters, you had to turn on aggro to yourself.
That was perfect though. They stayed in the same spot for you so you could revive them all at the same time.
I mean, it made that easier, but then the boss pointed at me. And so, like, I'm running and dodging the boss, trying to get to them to revive them so that I could get a heal circle up. And, like, I'm, like, zigzagging and, like, I'm doing, like, duck and weave, like rolling and trying not to die from this boss, because my party all decided to hang out underneath the same pillar and just all die in the same spot. I mean, yes, reviving them was easier. I just ran into the middle and I ran like mad and turned off aggro, and all 3 of them came back alive. And luckily the boss was still focused on me, so they got their magic off. But oh man, I was mad. I was like, there are like 10 pillars. Pick a different pillar. And I must have yelled at the AI so much in this game. I don't know if I just had a bad luck with it. Like, sometimes it was great.
I think you just had bad luck.
Fantastic. But I think I had a little bit more bad luck with the AI than generally speaking, because after I beat the game, I looked up reviews for the game and stuff, and I read like people's reviews and overall consensus of it. And I saw that people were talking about like that even though you didn't get to control your party often the time, they were pretty decent. And I'm just like, did I get the potato copy of this game? Like, did I get the game that Mistwalker was like, we're just gonna hide shitty AI in one of our games and like sell it, and I just got unlucky with it. But honestly, I got so unlucky with AI early on that Brute Force Mune came out, and I just made Zale
anyway
a tank. I mean, come on. I tried to actually like use my party and rely on them for a while, but when they would all stick under the same pillar and die, I was just like, you guys suck. I'm just going to handle this on my own. You guys just sit in the corner, and if you're going to do something, that'd be great. But if not, I'll handle the boss, unless it was something that I needed their mechanics for. But generally speaking, I just took on everything. And that's actually where I perfected my jumping up the wall and slamming on the enemies.
Yeah, see, that's wild. I spammed Gale with magic, diffusing circles. Like, that was my go-to strat. Like,
oh, that was fun too. Yeah, when I got my party to actually get their magic and stuff like that off or whatever, or they weren't doing something stupid, or one character stuck in a wall, and then I command them and they do the move in the wall. Thanks, Dagrin. When they were casting magic and stuff, I used diffuse all the time. I used that Gale move so much that I kept trying to do it when I had no SP, and then being like, why can't I do it? It is because you need to let it recharge, Polly. And I was like, no, I want to do it again. Because the heal was great because it would take off status ailments to you. So like the death, the confused sometimes, the paralysis that you would get in this game, all of them would be diffused by the magic circle if you like did your little Gale move. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, it's a really cool, like, okay, they really tried to play around with the mechanics of this game. Being on the Wii, they were trying to implement the Wiimote more.
They fed into the fact that like, you're playing this on the Wii, even though I played in classic controller mode, because Not Wiimote. No.
I don't Wiimote either. I'm sorry. I almost did. I was like, oh, maybe I should do this like from like the original experience. I was like, no, classic controller all the way. But they did try to like implement the Wii stuff more. And I mean that both was good and bad in some cases. But one thing I really thought was cool is that you could have your mages cast like a magical circle underneath the enemy or near the enemy or even underneath themselves. And it would just kind of emit a particular magic spell, but then you can use your main character to basically what he does is just runs up and like slashes and wind shoots out, but it's like it's called diffusing the circle, and you do that and it would do like different things like put a barrier on your entire party or heal your entire party or guard break some of the enemies, which was so useful, or slip fall.
Slip one was
so nice.
Good.
Lovell with Lovell. Oh my god, I can't pronounce names today. With the ice magic and like putting it down, and then me doing that and having the enemy slip every time they stepped was so satisfying. You just saw your enemy, like you're fighting or your boss, just like fall over, and I just cackled with laughter because I'm like, ha! And I like attack them more. It was really such a cool mechanic to do that. It was kind of clunky at first to get used to it a little bit.
Because they didn't really explain it super well, in my opinion.
They didn't explain it well, no. I don't like the tutorials. I found the tutorials more confusing than just sitting in a battle I know I could win over and over, like keeping like a few enemies alive that kept like respawning in the battle because I didn't advanced to stop the battle from happening. I would just kind of like figure things out and like learn the mechanics like from trial and error. I felt like the explanations they didn't explain it very well, especially the vertical. The vertical slice was not explained well.
No, that was the only one that wasn't super great. Honestly, I just read the tutorials like 3 or 4 times and was like, okay, I think this is what they mean, and then I kind of went from there.
Yeah, where I just like trialed it. I just like I got into the battle and I'm like, I'll just figure it out. And one thing with like the vertical slice was like you had to like run at the wall and then change your camera to look up the wall to get it.
It was weird. It was really weird.
You going up the wall, which is really. Okay, you hardly ever needed to use that like looky around joystick button. Like I like unless I really had to like seek something or whatever, or was part of the thing, I didn't need to use it a whole lot, except for you needed it for that one vertical slice move. And sometimes, depending on the wall height, he wouldn't run up it.
I never used that for the vertical. I never used that for it. I just ran at the wall and he would just run up it.
Oh, really? I didn't like for some reason, every time I would run at the wall, he wouldn't go up it. He wouldn't go up it. And I was like, how do I do this move? And then I just started messing around buttons, and then I moved that 1 second joystick and like down or up or something like that for him to look up. And then suddenly he went up the wall and I was like,
it took a minute. Like it would take it was like slightly delayed, but yeah, he would still run up the wall and do it. So
oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess maybe I just didn't have the patience, which is also understandable. I might not have had the patience, so I'm just like, looky.
Yeah.
But after I figured that out with the look joystick, I was able to do vertical things all the time. And I just had fun, like running up a wall, backflipping and smashing on the ground. And I loved killing enemies that way. It was just satisfying. Like sometimes Daggerin would be like struggling with an enemy. And I'm like, don't worry, Daggerin, I got you. And then I would like turn around and run up the wall and do a backflip and smash. And like Daggerin would just like stand there, like look at you. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. I was like showing off in front of my party. Not that they're sentient or anything, but like it was kind of funny. Like I had a lot of fun with messing around with that. So when you got to that part in the trial where you were required to do that, I ended up not losing against that guy at all. And be vague on, I don't want to say names or anything like that, but I didn't end up losing in the trial because I was running up the wall and smashing the guy as much as I could, and it was so satisfying. Like I was having a blast with it. So I found it was clunky at times. I would curse, but I feel like I just had bad AI, so I was cursing at my party a lot because of the doing silly things with just being silly and stuff like that. And I swear, Eno was probably just tired of me just like yelling at the characters, being like, "Move! I know I can't control you, but move!" And then I'd wait till the command goes up to like get them to do something, or get them to retreat, or get them to move, or whatever. Yeah, like that one time when I had Dagrin stuck in the wall, he's like, "Oh, you want me to attack? I'll do it in the wall," because he was stuck. So I was like, all right, cool. Thanks for your help, Dagrin. I'm just going to go solo this boss over here. And I swear, I wish I was recording it, because I think that was so funny, because you could only see his head and his arm, and the rest of him was clipping in the pillar wall. So
That's
he just
wild.
went.
He's just attacking nothing.
Yeah, attacking nothing. And I was like, oh my God, man. And there's just your main characters there. Like, I was like looking at him, just standing there like, the fuck are you doing? Like, so I wish I like those are the moments where I'm like, I was playing right off the Wii U. Loading times was a little, I don't know if it was the Wii, like if I played on the Wii, the loading times would have been a little bit better, but I found the loading times a little rough sometimes. Sometimes it would take quite a while for it to load.
I didn't have any issues with load times.
But I'm wondering, because I played it off the Wii U rather than the Wii, and I'm wondering maybe it had something to do with that. But like my disc was like perfect or whatever, so like I don't know. Maybe my Wii U needs to be cleaned. Maybe I'll have to look at it to clean it. But yeah, it was a little weird that I had a few like loading issues, but again, I looked up and I was like, oh, other people aren't really talking about the loading issues, so it's got to be just a me thing. So I realized when I was like writing out my notes for this review off the game and everything after beating it, I was like, I think some of these are going to be a poly only scenario, and I don't think majority of you will have my problem. But if you get one of your characters stuck in the wall, command doesn't help. Learned that the hard way. Oh, it's funny, but no, the mechanics were really neat. I appreciate that they were trying to do something different, and it was very different. I think it was just kind of in that era of when RPGs were put on the Wii, where they were like really trying to get you to use like the Wii motion sensor, motion controls and stuff. And maybe I would have appreciated it, but I was never a huge fan of that.
There was no shot. There was no shot I was using the Wiimote. And
yeah,
honestly,
I'm not a fan.
I think
I went classic.
I think they pushed it a little bit with like the look commands and stuff like that, which I thought was really cool that they tied some of that into the story. I don't want to, honestly, I feel like not getting into the story too much is probably a good idea, but I think that there is
because it's so like, it's only a 20-hour game, right? So
it's like a 20-hour game, and it's kind of a very traditional-ish story with how they give the characters and everything. But I do think there is something we need to talk about that is going to be massive spoilers. I think we do need to talk about it. It is okay. So that's probably your heads up that we're about to spoil a big story thing. It's a big plot twist in the story. So we'll give you a second.
Spoilers.
This plot twist was very obvious to me from the beginning. I called it out quite early. Yep. Polly also called it out quite early.
After I had I was ahead of you for a duration of this game, and you were just like, "Oh, I'm just like." Because I had just gotten a little bit I was a little bit further in the plot. And I'm like, yep, sippies. You literally what I was saying.
Whenever something happened that was important in the story that like went wrong, whether it was the like people that you're the race of characters that you're at war with randomly attacked, or like there's some knowledge that randomly got leaked, or someone happens to die when there's like a random big thing going on. There's always one person missing. Fucking Dagrin. Always.
And that's why it was extra anger inducing for me, because like I was calling it, and then he pulled the shit where he got stuck in the pillar, and I was just like, yeah, of course your traitor ass is the one that fucked me over in this boss fight.
It was so obvious. I'm just like, this dude. So like, again, major character dies. He runs off to help, and all of a sudden the character's dead. They set up another character. All of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, he did that, not me. I didn't do it. He did it. It's like there were so many things. It was so obvious. And
so
like,
obvious. Yep.
I think I called it in like chapter 7. I was like, oh, this dude is totally gonna turn on you. Like, because there was no way that, like, he was just so, he was so obviously the bad guy that it was just like, this is so obvious. It was wild. And then like, after you beat the final boss, what you think is the final boss, they hit you with the, but wait, there's more. And you find him and they're talking and it's just like, yeah, it was like, the characters are so surprised and they're like hurt and heartbroken. I'm like, yo, y'all are dumb. Like, this was, you could have been able to tell this back when randomly the bad guys invaded, when it was like, they should have had no idea that they could have been able to invade at that point. It was
and even just
so
his
ridiculous.
lines often to the main character, like even the way he talked to Zale, he was very much like, oh, are you just thinking for yourself, or are you thinking for the betterment of everybody else? And it was very foreshadowing that he was thinking for himself,
I can see
all
that,
the
yep.
time, and putting himself thing, and then he was consumed or whatever by his own selfish thing. But it was like he would constantly look at Zale being like, oh, are you doing that? And when Zale's like, man, I'm out here trying to save the world and save my friends and get the girl. And what you mean I'm doing this for me? Like, Zale's like he's just, it just not exuberate that like energy ever. But with him constantly questioning that, I'm like, you either don't know your buddy or you're letting on something a little bit more. And it's like stuff like that it was just, it became so glaringly obvious that I was like when the real was, it's like, oh yeah, I'm so shocked. But it's unfortunate that it was so obvious, because it was one of the only like potential, I don't know, big plot reveals of the game.
Yeah, the game kind of, and that's I think the story kind of unraveled the way I expected it to. That's
the story kind of went with like a kind of a typical, if you played RPGs, even if you've read like fantasy books, it did a very typical sort of straight line sort of to the goal sort of scenario, right? So, and
Which
it was very obvious who your love interest was going to be within like chapter 2 or some stupid thing. Like
I said, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Like I'm fine with it being like,
it's totally
I think
fine.
If the game was
just,
if the game was longer, I think it would have been a problem, because it would have been like, okay, this is the fact that a lot of it was telegraphed and like you knew what was going to happen. You kind of knew how a lot of things were going to unravel. I think the biggest like plot twisty type things were probably, or biggest unexpected things were probably in a lot of the optional content. But like, I felt like the main story stuff, for the most part, like it was like, even as far as the big hero that everybody looks up to trains the main character, and then shit pops off and you're like, okay, this dude's gonna die. Like,
yeah
guaranteed.
I was one of two ways. I was like, he's either gonna die or he's going to also be in cahoots with Dagran. Like, I was just predicting Dagran for the whole thing.
I was like 100% certain he was gonna die. I was
and
gonna die.
As it built up, where he was the one who's like trying to defend you, he was the honorable one, he was against the count from the beginning, blah blah blah. I was like, oh no, he's so doomed.
Yeah,
like,
I was like, yep.
I knew it was coming. And the funny thing is he's the one who I was referencing earlier with the creepy smile. In the cutscenes I had with him, where it's shifted out with the dialogue, his face kept like just permanently being like,
yeah, that's
as
so
he's
weird.
talking to you about something serious.
Your copy of this game is
fix
possessed.
your face. Your face does not match the context of this conversation.
Your copy of this game is definitely possessed.
Yeah, I don't know. I had quite the funny experience, but I was also like kind of like I did find I was like analyzing like the character models and stuff like that too, because I kept being like, ooh, how did they do that? Who did do that? And I was just kind of like looking at it a lot more closely too. But like that the
did we even play the same game
sometimes? But
did you play the first story?
Yeah, I was playing a different game apparently.
Yeah,
I was
you were playing the first
investigate
story.
the 3D models and break the AI apparently. But it's totally okay for a game to be like kind of linear in its story and stuff like that. And I think if it's not, it doesn't go longer than what it needs to. And I think the last story does such a great job of not going longer than it needs to. I think it being a shorter game actually really benefits it.
I
in
agree.
the terms of like the story, although predictable and kind of like what I thought it was going to happen, was still enjoyable. Like it was still an enjoyable experience. You're like, ooh, I'm a mercenary who wants to be a knight, and and your main character was enjoyable. Like he was just trying to help people, and he wanted to like protect people, and his dream was to like protect people. And he fit that very well, and the story progression, and even like the leading lady who right from like chapter 2 you knew was going to be the leading lady. I always put her in blue because you see her the first time in blue.
I think I had
like,
her in orange.
No, I put Dagrin in orange because I was like, Best Twin hates this color. So out of all the colors of this choice, I don't really hate any of these colors, but Best Twin hates this color. So I'm putting the guy I don't like in orange.
She was the only one that that orange actually popped on. So I put her in orange. I knew, I was so convinced that Dagrin was going to betray us that I did not even customize him. I did not customize him. I did not give him any kind of custom armor or anything. I think I customized his armor once, and then I was like, oh fuck, I didn't mean to do that. And then I just changed it, and I was like, all right, cool, we're done. Like I never customized Dagrin because I knew, like I was ready to stake my entire playthrough on the fact that motherfucker was gonna betray me.
The worst color that I could think of in there that I knew like people didn't like, and then it on him, I was like, yeah, you look goofy. This is the suited color for you. And it was so funny because in the last like segment, he's in bright like fluorescent orange, trying to be like the bad guy in the conversations at the end, and he's in bright fluorescent orange, and I laughed really hard the whole time. He was like talking and like monologuing and stuff like that, and I'm like, he just like shows up at the top of the stairs, and he's just like the reveal, and he's in just bright fluorescent orange, and I was like, I was like, I can't take this guy seriously at all. It made me laugh so hard. I was like, and I was cackling pretty hard at that. But even though you got like the leading lady right at the beginning, you knew who she was. She was an enjoyable character too. She was kind of being like forced into something she didn't want to do, but it was like her like uncle was like marrying her off. But she was also very much like the classic damsel in distress sort of like motif, which is okay. She made some
decisions that I didn't love. It's actually really funny. These two characters remind me a lot of two Fire Emblem characters that are in a similar situation of like male female lead. For those of you that know, they remind me a lot of like Alm and Celica especially in the sense of like she does some things that I'm just like, why did you do that? That was such a bad idea, and put you and everyone else you're trying to protect also in a bad spot. And like that, I drew so many parallels to those two characters, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm playing Fire Emblem Shadows of Valentia all over again. Like that's what this is. Like, oh my goodness. Yeah, there were a lot of parallels.
It's funny that I know Alm because we made the sword, I think, for you.
Probably, yeah.
But he has,
or not for me, but no, in general.
Yeah, the sword behind you is Alm's sword, right?
No.
Yeah, and then Celica, I've done stuff of Celica too. I have not played this game. That makes me laugh. But yeah, so like they're enjoyable and stuff like that. I also loved how spunky like Seren is.
Seren was a really good character.
She was a fun character. She was spunky. At like just before you're introduced to the leading lady, I actually thought maybe she had like a little bit of a thing for Zale, just the way she said certain things to him. But then immediately when the leading lady gets, I was like, no, it's gonna be her. It's gonna be her. And it's like classic damsel distress. He wants to be a knight, and she's the classic damsel in distress. Like it's like
the game again. It was very just like you can predict what's going to happen. Like everything about the game just it was. And again, there's nothing wrong with that.
It was a classic telling story of somebody who's aspiring to be a hero and gets to be a hero in the end. Like, and you have the damsel in distress, and you kind of have like the spunky character. And honestly, like Yurik kind of threw me for a loop. Like him being like a super interesting character, doing the side quest with him, learning about his dad, learning about his upbringing, all that sort of stuff. And like with the little picture of his family, and oh my god, I was like, oh, I was emotional. That kind of stuff gets to me. But and then you talk to him in the bar or whatever, and he's just like, oh, you want to know what's under here? And I was like, yes. Yes, I've been wanting to know if this is like a fashion accessory, a memento, or you actually got some weird fucked up eye under there. Like, let me peek. I want to see. And then you have this like conversation or whatever, and he shows you, and I was like, yep, perfect. It was one of the three things I wanted it to be. But he ended up being a really interesting character. However, I was a little sad that like while they had very limited optional dungeons, well, that's fine because it's a short game. Some of the optional dungeons had plot to it that explained things a little bit better than what was explained in the game. Like something with Mirania's one, for example. She wants to go to this thing because it's alive. And I never even thought about it being like, what do you mean it's alive? Like everything's alive. And she's like, oh, like things are like fading out during the thing. And I'm like, oh, and you go into this forest and you're kind of trying to investigate why everything is dying, why the flowers are dying, blah blah blah. And I'm like, and then suddenly I started to notice it, like when you went to town, like they had like wilted plants and stuff like that, and the little things, like little subtle things, like where some stuff there was like greenery, but other places it was like wilting and stuff. And I'm like, oh, this all makes way more sense now. And so, but that's behind an optional dungeon. You didn't need to do that dungeon. Same with Yurik's past stuff. And then again, with the optional dialogue being character development as well, I really wish they would have like just added to the character, not left things out when it was optional. And kept that as a mainline thing. And then the optional dungeons could have just been just fun, quirky things. Like the Haunted Mansion was funny because people kept like disappearing. Like you go from like a full party to like you and freaking Horace, and that's like it. Who's like this?
Yeah, I didn't do the mansion. I didn't do the mansion at all. I saw him on the bridge, and I was like, do I want to do this? And I'm like, nah, I don't really like this character. I'm not doing this.
Yeah, so Horace asks you to investigate a haunted mansion where his wife has disappeared. And a lot of people have disappeared, and you're like, what the hell? So you go through, and it's so funny because like your party slowly disappears as you go through this freaking dungeon. And eventually you find them later on in it. And like, it was just an enjoyable time. The boss mechanics, like figuring that out, was kind of neat, and you end up fighting that boss again in the storyline, similar boss in the storyline to it with similar weakness and stuff. But like, it was just a funny moment where it was like I actually got to see lighter sides of Dagran, for example, where he was like joking around with like being like, bah, to Yurik's like, stop freaking me out. Like he was like all like upset because he was like freaked out by this mansion, and Yurik was like, yeah, I don't like ghosts. And you like get to learn a little bit more about Yurik, and like Dagran keeps like fucking with him, and like Dagran's one of the first to go missing, which makes me laugh because I'm like, you got it. You got it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
you get like kidnapped into this thing, and then after you finish the haunted mansion and you talk to Yurik, you're just like, oh, I never want to go freaky stuff like that again. And you find out that Yurik is like afraid of ghosts through this like little thing. That's
I feel
a fun
like
little.
you played it. I do feel like you played a different game. Because like I said, and don't get me wrong, like I feel like I did not feel like my experience was like, I had a good experience with the game, and we can talk about that very shortly. But like, I had a good experience with the game. I just I didn't get as much of this because I didn't do as much of the side content stuff. Like, I did the chapter with Yurik, I did the chapter with Marania, I did some of the extra stuff later on. Like, I went back to like the Garak Fortress and stuff like that. But like,
yeah.
Some of the other things, like, I did not, because it was just like, I didn't feel, I would have only done the extra stuff. Like, I was worried if I did the extra stuff, I would feel broken, like super broken in the game. And it wasn't until I got to the end of the game and they like gave me a summoning circle, and I was like, oh, I should use this. And I used it, and I leveled, I killed the things, and I leveled up like 2 levels, and I was like, oh, that must mean I'm under leveled. So then I grinded out until I didn't get any more levels from it. And then I was like, okay, well, until I was getting like limited level or limited experience. And then I was like, all right, now I'm of the right level. But other than that, like, I didn't necessarily struggle with the game, like hordes or anything like that. So I was like, I shouldn't need to do anything.
There was one fight that killed me several times before I really got the mechanics down. And that was the summon fight, where it was the big black and red dragon thing, and then your whole thing is waiting out time. And the first time I didn't know that, so I died. That you're like waiting for basically Callista, Lisa, to cast this special summon, to have a summon fight a summon, rip off its wings so you could just like sit there attacking it. I didn't realize that was a time thing. So like my characters were like all like, a lot of them had died multiple times. I had died multiple times. And then by the time I got to that aspect, I just didn't like, I was so low life. I think I only had 1 life left that I died, and because of the stupid electricity and stuff. But after like, I think it was the second try I beat it. Either second or third. I had figured out the mechanics and stuff like that, and did it. And it was an interesting boss fight. It was hard. And I liked that it was hard. And even being a higher level than probably you were doing it, those lightning bolts still like either insta killed me. I think they insta killed me, or like really dropped my health down. If you got hit,
you know what? I think I had barriered, so I wasn't getting as much. Like, I didn't have any like if
you were doing the barrier regularly, that's what I ended up doing to beat it.
Like, yeah, that boss wasn't nearly as bad for me. Because again, like, by that point I was like, oh yeah, barrier will help here and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I didn't have a ton of issue, and it just ended up being the case where I just had all the mages cast, and then
the pillar issue that I talked about, that's that fight. All 3 of my mages hid behind a pillar and got nuked.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, they did. Yeah. They grouped up. They did group up in that fight for me as well. I don't think that was necessarily like that particular.
Maybe that's a mechanical thing. Maybe they were like supposed to, or something like that.
Because the problem is the boss lands on different pillars. And you have to knock the pillar. You have to knock it off the pillars. So
no, that's a different fight. That's the one before it. That one I had no problem with. That's the one where it's like a tiger thing and it's like running around in circles. No, I'm talking about the big flying one.
No, I remember what you're talking. I remember the flying one. You know what?
I think you're just mixing. I think you're mixing the 2 fights. Yeah, because
I thought because one of them has multiple. One of them has multiple stages.
Yeah, that's the pillar one, I think. Yeah,
the pillar one has multiple stages. Yeah.
The one I struggled at was where it was the bird summon thing, where you just start off as you and Callista. And then your party joins you shortly after, and then and it's a time waiting until Callista could do her big summon thing. You summon the thing, you rip off the wigs, and then you just go hammer at it. But my problem was the first time I didn't realize that I was waiting for that. And then when she was talking about the summon thing, I was going around and like trying to do the mechanics of like, they use the silence thing, I diffuse it, it knocks to the ground and I fight it. While I heard that what she was saying, I didn't realize it was because she wanted me to use a move until finally my thing built up and I did it. And I was like, oh crap. But by that point, I had already had so low lives. I think I was on my last life that even though it ripped off the wigs and things started to get a little easier, he annihilated me. And then the second time, I think I died 3 times because the second time I had the group thing where they kept grouping up. They grouped up. He nuked them. And then so I tried to get to them, aggro, and resurrect them, and then he just went like hammered on me, killing me. And then when they finally revived or whatever, he turned and killed them. And like when I tried to keep pulling his aggro or whatever, it was just a mess. Third time, I like really worked with the game mechanics and what it did and didn't like do a whole lot until she was able to do her move and it was fine. But the pillar one was, I thought that was a fun mechanic thing, like where you knocked him off the pillar, where he like chucked the thing and you sent it back. And then knocks him off the pillar, or you had your mages attack the pillar and knock him off, and then you go over and you just like go ham. I thought that fight was great. I thought that was fun.
They did a lot of cool things, and
they did a lot of cool things, and they made the mechanics interesting for different boss fights, like where it wasn't just I'm just gonna run up and like attack this over and over and over again. You had to actually think about what to do in a lot of the cases and stuff like that. So yeah, I thought this was really neat. And
so where do you?
That I want?
I don't want to cut you off with my.
No, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to bring up, because that was one of the things where it was like them all hiding behind the pillar I mentioned earlier. Yeah, that was the fight. Oh yeah, Dagger's reveal being in fluorescent orange killed me. I cackled so loud. Oh, so speaking of mechanic things, I thought it was really fun in this game that you have a crossbow where you could shoot stuff. And like human characters, you shot like paralysis arrows.
Yeah, you can paralyze
them.
I learned very early on you could paralyze all human characters pretty much. So any fight that had a human character in it, I was shooting paralysis arrows to see if I could paralyze them.
And every non-human thing, if you shot a prank banana at them, where you basically throw a banana peel on the ground, they will slip on it.
Yep.
Repetitive.
To the point where you can use that at like one of the big bosses. Like you can just, for both of them, you can paralyze a big boss and you can also trip a big boss with bananas. It's so silly.
Bananas. It's so funny because he's this big, intimidating, like, you know, build up of an evil boss, the entire game sort of build up, and you're literally throwing prank bananas. He's falling and he's like dropping his sword, and you grab his sword and like you attack him. I ended up with that sword in my inventory at the end, being like, wait, I got to keep his sword? And I thought it was going to be this epic thing, but no, my weapons were much better. But in terms of playing the game differently, I did all the optional content. I did all the optional dungeons. Some of them were kind of funny, where like one of them where like Dagrin was like whining about going, like, okay, Dagrin was, this was funny. He's like, oh, there's not that many stairs. It's fine, because the party was complaining about the stairs they had to climb to like leave. He's like, oh, it's fine. And the party's like, yeah, okay. And then it comes up that it fades to black. It comes up that you're on stair 3,698 and your party's at the top and Dagrin's at the like bottom, just like huffing and wheezing and like making like almost like he's gonna puke noises. And the party's like, what's the matter, Dagger? And I thought you thought this was easy. And he was like, you all suck. I just laughed because I didn't like this character, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, I didn't like this character. It was built up that you didn't like him. I even thought his reasoning for being a bad guy was stupid. I was like, you're stupid. Yeah, and your reason's stupid. But one thing I will say is you get New Game Plus in this game. So when you beat the game, you could start the game over with your levels and equipment being the same. I was a little sad to see that that's really all you got you get to level up your weapons and get cooler weapons and stuff like that as you go through the game again. But there wasn't any like optional story stuff or optional bosses or anything
Yeah, pretty much
extra
the
that
only
you got to do with New Game Plus. And I had
pretty
an
much
idea.
the only thing you get is like the extra weapons. So like I know when you're like some of the late game bosses drop weapons that you can't really upgrade, and then like one of the really late bosses drops a weapon that you can't really upgrade. And then when you're leaving the like boss area, you can actually collect a couple of different weapons and stuff that bosses drop, and you'd be able to upgrade those and stuff like that. But yeah, I went and I looked at it because I knew the game had New Game Plus, and I went and looked, and I was like, okay, is there really anything? And I wasn't able to find anything. Now, obviously, people can leave in the comments or like reach out or anything if there is something extra.
Is there any besides like because I went through and I did all the optional dungeons, right? So I'm like, I already did all the optional content. Is there any like special optional dungeon or anything if you do New Game Plus? Please leave in the comments if you know if there's anything like that. But I was a little disappointed because I came up with like kind of like a plot idea, which I think would have been kind of interesting because the party brings up with Dagran. Dagran's like whole reason of this is that he was just wanting revenge, and the party was like, why didn't you ever tell us that you were suffering from this? And he's like, oh, you know, like he tried to play it off that he didn't care about them, he only used them as pawns. But at the end, when you get to like when you're doing the end game stuff and you beat him, he kind of, it's very clear that while he was blinded by revenge, he still cared about everybody. I thought of something interesting because he gives you the memento sword between him. It was like him and the main character's promise, and they give you the sword, and you actually get that sword in your inventory at that point. I thought it would have been really neat if a New Game Plus thing was like you somehow got to talk to Dagran with the knowledge that you had of the game and change his fate and like get an alternate ending or something like that.
I think that's asking for a lot. I think that's asking for a lot.
I think it was asking for a lot. I mean, again, it's a league game.
I mean, chrono. You're asking for like chrono levels of.
It might have been too much. I think
your
I came up with this and I was like, oh, this would have been cool.
I think your idea
and like
of
a
New Game Plus
redemption thing where you could have saved him before he was like a bad guy. And
I think your idea of New Game Plus is a little skewed from some time traveling things and stuff like that.
Okay, listen, Chrono Trigger is fantastic. Don't at me. My favorite game, man.
Again, like, you're asking for. Let's move on from that. I think your aspirations for that are a little big. But yeah. So I mean, overall, how are you feeling about the game?
That's where I found rating it kind of difficult.
Really?
I found it hard to rate this game because I was like, I obviously know that I had a different experience than people did with the AI and stuff like that. So I found that I was more self-reliant, and like by the end game, my Zale was like, oh, like I was able to do the end boss no problem. I didn't even have a try. I didn't die anymore since that bird, like the summons fight. Since then, I hadn't even like full on like game wiped, game overed. So I did everything else first try and the end boss and stuff like that because I was a little like doing all the optional dungeons made me at a level that I didn't really struggle with at all. But
and I think it made your party a level that they didn't really struggle either, because that was the thing.
Yeah, they didn't really have an issue either.
I was a high enough level, but my party definitely struggled. But now I get that. So
yeah, I didn't really rely on them either. So like I was doing really good attack. And Yurik having that, like, I love that Yurik gets a move like halfway through the end boss fight. I thought that was fucking cool. He gets this big over freaking move, and I loved using that. That was fun. But like mostly I just like I beat up Dagger. I felt like Zale needed to do this. He needed to beat up Dagran because of all this was his buddy that betrayed him and stabbed him back. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna do this on my own. And didn't use the party too much except for the barrier and the odd like magic attack. But I think it was a little over leveled. So I think, well, I mean, doing all the optional content, I didn't do any grinding. That's the thing. I didn't do any grinding. I did one summon circle to see what it did. and that got wiped, and I was like, what? And then I did it again when my party was closer to me, and I handled it fine. So I was like, okay, this must have just been a fluke. And then I never did a summon circle again, ever.
Yeah, I only did the one at the very end.
It's just the optional dungeons. Oh, I did an optional thing that wasn't a dungeon. I don't know if you did this. It started out where I was like kind of doing like optional things where you're like catching frogs, and then it turns into that you're like Zale fighting like cougars in the city.
No, I didn't do that.
Like cat things and stuff like that. And you're fighting them. Yeah, so I did that, and I think that's why Zale ended up such a much higher level, because when I did that, he leveled up a bunch, but it was a solo fight. It was just him. So he ended up being so much higher level than everybody else. But otherwise, yeah. How would I rank this game? I like the music. The music was great. I know we didn't talk about it, but the music was fantastic.
Yeah, the music was good.
I mean, I think it was Nobuo Uematsu who did the music.
Yeah, it was Uematsu.
Yeah, so I mean, like, he's classic. Like, the music was fantastic. Good themes, emotional stuff at the right points. Like, found the colors a little bit muted. The art style was a little muted. I had some clunky stuff with the AI, but I think that was more me. I think my game copy's cursed. I think it's a solid RPG. I think it's, for me, I think it's like a 7.5, 7. Like, that's a solid RPG. It didn't do anything like super groundbreaking, but what it did, it was entertaining. It was fun. I'm glad it didn't go on longer than it did. I think the length of the game was fine for the direction and everything they went with. I wish they would have made it a little bit more of a twist with Dagger, but that's not a huge critique of it. Yeah, I think I'm around that range. I think I'm in the, I think for me, like, to get into the 8, you there's something that has to highlight from the game where it's like it stands out of things. And I think the last story is a really, really solid JRPG, but there wasn't anything super that stood out for me with it.
Okay.
But I did like, I mean, maybe the battle system puts it at like the 7.5, because I think they, with the Wii and the limitations and like the whole Wii portion of things where everything had those motion controls and stuff, I think they tried to make it clever, and the battle system was kind of, yeah, I think I'm going to go with like closer to the 7.5 for me personally.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, this game was it's funny. I sold my copy and I'm higher on this game than you were. This game is a solid 8 for me. I think, honestly, it's just one of those games that, like, I think it did.
I think this is the first time you're higher than me.
I think it did a lot of things well. I think the things that it didn't do well, I think, are sort of like not as big of a deal for me. And I think it's definitely one of those things where, like, the combat was unique enough that it kept me interested, even if there were times where the story was a little slow or that the story was a little predictable and I didn't necessarily care about it. Like, all the different mechanics I thought were really cool. I thought that the fact that I didn't necessarily have to always rely on AI, but I also could really utilize them to my advantage in battle, I thought that was really cool.
Brute force.
Yeah, no, honestly, I thought that it was really cool. I think the upgrading system, while simple, is also really good. I do think, and based on the New Game Plus, like, sort of layout of things, there are some equipment that you get that you can't upgrade, even though, like, you can't upgrade to its fullest because there's items that you can get in New Game Plus to be able to upgrade those things. So, like, yeah, I think overall this game is pretty dang good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really solid game.
I'm not saying like me not being at an 8 or whatever makes this bad. No, I really enjoyed it, and like I like the art book a lot. I like the art style, concept art, stuff like that. So I'll be keeping mine. I'll be trying to find the soundtrack to just complete it and keep in the collection. I'm a little disappointed with the New Game Plus. I almost feel like it's not a feature they necessarily needed to add into the game if they weren't gonna potentially do, but I don't know everything that comes with New Game Plus, so maybe there's like an optional dungeon or a few little optional things that you could have done, which is fine, but it's also with how short the game is and everything, maybe they felt pressure to have some sort of a New Game Plus system.
And that was another thing. I think the game didn't wear out its welcome. Like,
yes,
with what it did, it very well, if the game was an extra 10 10 hours, I would have been, I would feel a lot worse about it because again,
Yeah, I would have been closer to the 7, I think.
when a game is predictable and a game is like, it just drags on like that when you know what's going to happen and it just feels like it's filler and like it's happening.
They
just
did a
for the
great
sake of
job
happening.
with pacing of this game,
the
where
pacing of this game
when
was
they
good.
were done, it was done. And they didn't try to stretch it out with more content. They didn't try to stretch it out with more boss fights. They didn't try to, do these things. Also, interesting enough, something I did that KJ didn't do that I didn't realize is once you beat the game, it's one of the first games that I played where you can run around in the town again, even after you've beaten the end boss.
Yeah, there's like an epilogue. There's like a few chapter epilogue.
There's an epilogue thing. Yeah, you could do a few of the optional dungeons you missed. You could do a few like different like dialogue things. You could do a few little optional stuff around the city. But one thing that I found was I really liked the character Therius. I know he was like kind of like a very predictable character, but he was my silver-haired guy, and I was intrigued by him, and he was one of my.
For those of you that are listening, I face palmed.
Listen.
Nope, we're not getting. This is not a tangent that's happening. I'm shutting it down. I'm shutting it down. This is not a tangent that's happening. I am not letting you bring Unhinged to the podcast.
I'm not gonna go that way.
It's not happening.
No, that'll be for the last story after dark review. I really enjoyed like Therius as a character. I actually thought maybe like just with how straightforward like the general was as opposed to him, and he was a little like snooty with you at first, but you kind of like as he sees you and your potential and stuff like that, he like grows on you and stuff. And when he has a situation where he gets like stabbed in the leg, and I was like, don't you do it, game. Don't you take another silver-haired guy away from me. I swear I will throw this copy. I will sell it. Like, I'm going to be mad. But no, I'm kidding. I wouldn't have done that. But I really like Therius, but I couldn't find him at the end stuff. So I was like, don't tell me they're going to like give me this like, he died. I'm like, don't you freaking dare. He was stabbed in the leg. He can survive that. Like, so like I'm running around and I'm trying to find him. And I went down into, I think it was where you find, it's where you find so-and-so dead. He's there. He's down there. And you talk to him because one of the maids, I ran into one of the maids and they're like, oh, Therius was looking for you. They're near this area. I was like, oh, crap. Okay. So I ran to that. Sure enough, I ran into him and he's like, so I made a promise to you. And he's like, Azael's like, yeah. And he's like, let's do our one-on-one. And you get to do a one-on-one fight with him like the trial, but with Therius. And I was like, I'm going to kick your ass.
I had zero desire. I was like, yo, I'm beelining. I beat the final boss. Time to put the nice little bow on this game and call it a day.
Yeah, I kind of like at the end I was like, it was weird being able to like run around the thing, but I wanted to say my goodbyes to Therius, and what better way than to fight him in a duel and beat his ass. So I did that, and then I ended the game. I finished it. I was mad. They didn't kiss. Where's my kiss? But anyway, other than that, yeah.
All right, so.
It was a solid game. It's a 7.5 for me. I think for an 8, for it to start getting into the 8, I want it to have like something a little bit like a bigger like, I don't know, RPG oomph to it. But 7.5 is still a really great score for me. Yeah, I think it's a really good game. I liked it. I might replay it again someday in the future. That's why I'm going to keep it.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not going to replay it. This game is definitely a one and done for me.
But that's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
I finally learned what's in New Game Plus. No, I'm kidding, but yeah.
True.
Yeah. I think this is the first time where I'm a lower ranking than you, because I think we've tied, and I think I've been higher than you a couple times. Definitely on Kodelka, I was higher than you on that.
Oh yeah, that game's borderline bad.
But I don't know. I have to go back and rewatch, but I don't know if I've been lower than you before. Interesting.
I don't know.
But I mean, 7.5 is not a bad score. I'm nothing wrong with 7.5 in my opinion.
All right. So
Due to no kiss. You know what? Swikey's right. I didn't get my main characters didn't kiss in the end, so that's what dropped it from the 8. If they would have kissed, it would have been an 8. No,
oh my goodness.
I'm kidding.
So on that note, this has been the episode reviewing The Last Story. Next month we will potentially, or I won't say next month. So March and April will potentially be playing Unicorn Overlord. It is a new Vanillaware game that came out, or that's coming out on March 8th. Yeah. And we're trying to figure out if we're going to be interested in playing it. I think we are, but there's no guarantees. I'm all in. Yeah. Polly hasn't played it yet. I played the demo. I love it.
I'm going to be playing the demo this weekend, so we will make the announcement if we are or not, or if we're going to pivot. I don't play this type of game very often, so generally when this happens, we've done this with Tactics Ogre Reborn before as well. Some of you may know Tactics Ogre Reborn was originally on the fence being a podcast game, and then I tried it on stream because Square gave me a copy of the game to try it. So I tried it on stream and I ended up falling in love with it, and I was all in. I was like, hey Jay, we're doing this. So I did it. So similarly, Aspect is I'm gonna try the demo. KJ's already tried it. He tried it on his channel and he definitely loved it, so he's all in. But I'm gonna try the demo probably before the end of this weekend, so we'll have the announcement before the game comes out. Obviously, it'll be the next one. If it's Unicorn Overlord, it will be our next podcast game will be a 2-monther.
Yeah,
KJ
March
and I
April.
both. Yeah, it'll be March and April. So KJ and I both have PAX East. So we're away for an entire, I'm away for a week, but I'm at KJ's for a week. We'll be doing PAX East. And then there's a bunch of other things. Like we both have 3-year anniversaries that we're celebrating on stream in March. I have Women's Freight Trade that I'm helping organize in March. Like there's a lot happening in it. And it was just a lot going on that we were like, and it's a potentially long game because it's not out yet. Nobody knows how long it's going to be.
Oh, no, it's
because
like a 50+ hour game.
Oh, did they tell? Did they say?
Yeah, it's like a 50+ hour game. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's a longer game, and so but it's also we have a lot less time. So we're doing the podcast game for March and April this game. So it'll either be Unicorn Overlord or we will pivot to another game, but we will definitely announce that. But it's I'm gonna be trying it. Before the end of the weekend. So I wanted to play it yesterday, but things happened. So I did not get to play the demo as per planned, unfortunately. But yeah. I'm excited to try it though. It's very unique. I don't think I've quite ever seen or played a game like it before. Like I feel like it's a combination of a few different kind of games. And so I'm really intrigued. I'm really intrigued. Do you know what the pivot might be? I think we both already discussed it.
I have other ideas also,
but we also have other ideas. So
we're not sure. We're not sure,
but like we have a few ideas to pivot pretty quickly. Yeah. That if I end up not liking this game or not liking the demo, KJ's gonna still play Unicorn Overlord, but we'll pivot for the podcast if I don't end up liking it. So, but I mean, I feel like I hope. Hopefully I can think I feel like KJ's gonna go ham, so he's definitely gonna be somebody that it looks like there's a lot of mechanical stuff in it, and sometimes I get a little like brain overload with that stuff, but I'm like, well, KJ's gonna go ham, so he's probably gonna be ahead of me at all times in this game, so I'm like, I'm
already ahead of you in the game. I'm already ahead of you.
Because you've already played the demo. I haven't played the demo yet.
The demo bleeds into actual, like you can carry your save into.
I love that. I love when companies do demos like that. And I think like when you're doing an RPG, that should just be like the universal rule that the demo leads into the game.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Assuming that that's where the start is. But yeah, so that's going to be the end of this episode.
But yeah,
we will definitely...
happy 101. We're at 101.
Nice.
We did it.
Yeah, we'll definitely be playing something for March and April. We're not exactly sure what yet. Thank you everybody that came out on the YouTube side of things. And if you're listening on whether it's Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, or Amazon Music or whatever, or Google Podcasts or whatever you're listening on, go check out the YouTube channel. You'll get to see our live reactions while we're also recording these. And honestly, it'll just be a huge support. So it'll be a huge help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really appreciate
Please
that.
do.
And yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up here.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. And also thank you very much to the 2 people who subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We hit 101 subscribers. That's pretty fantastic that we're over 100. That's incredible. Thank you so much to those 2 individuals who did that. That's really freaking fantastic. And of course, we actually have an interesting thing going on in both of our Discords where KJ figured out how to make a chat appear in both his and mine for Turn-Based Tangents. So we will be announcing their which game we end up going with. But it's a nice group chat. Like if you're in KJ's Discord and you chat in it, it'll appear in mine and vice versa. So you can see everybody's comments and everything. It's really, really freaking cool. And that's what we're doing for now for talking about the games and stuff like that outside of the review.
But yeah, so
Thanks for listening.
That's it. Yeah. Thanks everybody. We'll
Thanks
catch you
for
on the next
watching.
one.
Yeah.